up, y'all? It's your boy Marcus Bullock, and I'm the CEO and founder of Flikshop and the Flikshop School of Business. Now, I can't wait for y'all to begin today's course around the topic, building your professional brand. This video was created in collaboration with our friends at Village Capital and Grow with Google. And my big goal is, in this course is for you to walk away from today's session with the goal of understanding the power of building your own personal brand. Now, I don't care where you came from, where you live, or your background. I can tell you firsthand that when I went to prison as a 15-year-old kid and the last grade I completed in school being the 9th grade, it was tough. And even still, here I stand doing what I love and building a brand with my lived experiences. And this session is fast-paced, it covers a ton of information, and we even paused the video to be able to take some breaks. So make sure you do the same if you need to be able to grab some notes. All right, y'all ready? Let's tune in. So if you're talking about like building a system around the onboarding process, that was a massive fail for us in the early years. Changed everything once I learned how to do that effectively. So good stuff, Sophia. Thank you so much for that. All right, let's see. Boom, boom, boom. All right, how we looking? Views are good, full screen, and you can see me.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Super clear.
All right, so you guys, I get really excited when I have the conversation, talk about brand building, whether it's around personal brand, professional brand for yourself, or even your corporate brand. I get really, really pumped about it. And so I'm super excited to start this conversation. One of the things I do when I think about my own personal brand is I like to be able to make sure I'm always thoughtful about owning my brand, because if I don't manage my brand myself, then I'm leaving it up to someone else to tell me what my brand is. And that's why I was sharing this with someone yesterday when I was teaching a similar course. I'm like, look, the way that you display yourself, who you are, what's going on in your business, how you articulate, the first 30 seconds is the beginning of the cultivation in my mind, my perception of what your brand is. And so I like to be able to make sure that I'm intentional about leading with my brand. Because most times, even when, folks who know me and know me as the CEO of Flikshop, the very first thing they'll probably tell you is that most times when they see me with a Flikshop t-shirt on, because I'm always typically a walking, talking brand, mostly because my professional brand aligns very closely to my personal brand, and I figure out ways to be able to leverage that. I also ensure that I want to make sure that I have kind of sort of a way that I label my brand, and I want to be able to make sure I introduce this topic around creating your own personal brand with my own personal label. If I were to think about how I would brand myself, I would tell someone that I build trust and I leverage my own resilience while my brand is taking off, and I'm intentional about the relationships that I build along the journey. So I build trust, I'm leveraging resilience, and I'm intentional about the relationships that I'm building. That's what I want to be known for. When I go out in the marketplace, when I'm in the streets, I'm at my cousin's house, I'm at the cookout, I'm in the office, this is what I want to be known for. The truth of the matter is that a lot of the brand that I've been building along my own personal journey was not that. It was centered around what people saw because of the consistency of what I was building. And so I want to make sure that you guys don't fall into that same bucket. Now, to help guide this workshop, I'm going to answer a couple of quick questions that we'll be able to answer. I'm going to answer 5 questions that we'll have answered by the end of this session. And I'm really pumped about what those questions are. I'm not going to spend time reading them. You can read them yourself here, but we'll answer everything from what is a personal brand, how do I protect my brand, and for a lot of the people who are either on this call today or are going to be watching later on, you guys are going to be asking a big question, which is how do I make money from my brand? And so I think that it's important to at least have a conversation about it, because there's so many conversations that are centered around brand and brand management, and like, what does that really mean for those of us, specifically founders of our companies? Now, before I jump in, I always like to level set with, again, who my brand was and where I've grown to be. Now, I'm not telling you at any stage to change who you are in order to fit into a box of what the world thinks you should be. That's 100% not what I'm doing. In fact, at the end of the session, you'll see that I'm telling you the exact opposite when you're thinking about building your own personal or professional brand. I want you to find the best parts of you that you love about yourself. And I want you to push as much energy into that part as possible, because only you know what your goals are. And if you're being intentional about how your energy is being perceived in becoming the master of your own personal brand, then I think that it will exemplify itself just inevitably. When I was a kid and I was growing up in school, my personal brand at that time, my professional brand even, was the kid who was selling blow pops. I was the dude who was going to the school and had a bag full of annihilators, bag full of blow pops, bag full of Snickers. I was the kid who you knew you was going to spend your lunch money with when you first got on the bus, and you probably was going to be lunch hungry as I don't know what, because you just ate up all your lunch money messing around with moccasin and blow pops and those Snickers bars. Now, certain people in my school, they were known. They were building a brand around their student government association. They probably doing some amazing things back, now in these days. Some people, that were going to my school had a brand about, they were the class clown. This is where superlatives started to come in. If you went to a high school that had yearbooks and you go to the back of the yearbook and you were known for something, right? Some people were known for being so adamant about what was happening in the classroom, they were labeled as most likely to succeed. And everyone in the school would agree to this because they were always intentional about building a personal brand. The thing that I didn't realize when I was in high school, and I was going into my sophomore year at Suitland, I didn't understand that I was also doing that, right? I didn't understand that all along the journey, I was building that personal brand as known as the hustler. And then eventually became known as the hustler that was outside. And then I became known for selling drugs and doing all of the crazy things that was in the street, developing a completely different brand. And so while in the world of my mom and some of the people who were closest to me, they would have labeled me because of their perception of me, because of the energy I was giving, who I showed up to be was centered around either basketball, girls, or wanting to be rich. They associated that as who Marcus was, right? I knew then that I could control being rich off of selling candy. And so I wanted to go lean into that brand. In my mind, I was like, I'm gonna be a million off of this. And I could quantify my own success and my successes of others by how closely I was even getting when I was going to basketball practice, and I was playing basketball with other people, because this was a brand that they were building and they were known for hooping. And it's interesting how the perception becomes reality very swiftly when you're talking about who you are and the brand that you're managing. I'm gonna back up really quickly. It's so interesting how perception becomes reality for us when we're talking about the brand that we're managing. And as I was continuing to trail down this path of what was known like as the hustler markets, I ended up making decisions that were centered around the brand that I was predominantly building versus the brand that a lot of other folks knew me as. And I think that that's something that we all have to be thoughtful about, is that sometimes there's some duality when we start talking about our personal and our professional brand and what that means for us. Who are we and how are we showing up? And before I get into it, I'm going to talk about who we are in our companies. I think it's important to lay foundationally how through the years, you've been probably known for something. I was known for the hustler kid. You probably been known for, whatever the X thing that you were doing, whether or not you wanted to save people, help people on the playground, stop bullying, whatever that thing is. And if I would venture to say that you're probably still who you were back in those yesteryears. It was interesting that what I was growing in, I would grow to eventually make one of the worst decisions of my life that was snowballing that initial brand of the hustler markets and the innovator markets in the streets, and not the basketball markets and the speaking the order markets that my family and my friends that were in church knew me for. That snowball it compounded. It became a compounding thing. And eventually I ended up not only in handcuffs, but in handcuffs for a very long time, serving an 8-year prison sentence. And one thing I didn't realize when I was building my personal brand around my neighborhood, my after school friends, and even my church friends who eventually learned that of all the things that I was doing, I didn't realize that as I was growing, the decisions got harder, but the stakes or the rewards would get bigger. And one of the things I learned along this journey of building my own personal professional brand, whether it be on the personal Marcus Bullock side or the CEO of Flikshop side, is that as I continue to grow, even in my company, the decisions continue to get harder. It starts off with like, how am I going to get the resources to be able to build something inside of my company? And then it snowballs into something completely different because I'm carrying all of what I want Flikshop to be as Marcus Bullock into the brand, right? And when those decisions start to get harder, the rewards get bigger or the stakes get larger. And so it's so important to pay attention to it, because if I were to deviate and to fall down another path of my brand, and I'm going to talk about how sometimes we get distracted by things, whether it's in our personal life or in our professional life, right? Whether when I was getting distracted by possible verticals in my company because I was building a brand around the Flikshop tool that allowed for you to be able to send pictures and that would convert into postcards and send them to prison, people also began to leverage our tool to be able to take those pictures and turn them into postcards and then send them to people in the military. The interesting thing about that, right, as we continue to grow, decisions get harder. Should I go and leverage the continued marketing brand that I'm building and taking into the marketplace that's allowing us to grow and succeed, and double down on that? Or should I go into these other verticals like the military, or maybe senior housing where people want to send postcards to their grandmas, or maybe there are people or parents that want to send postcards to people that are going away to summer camp when their kids are gone for a week or two, right? These are all other verticals that I could have took Flikshop down. But if I'm very true and thoughtful about the brand that we're building and knowing that we want to create a larger snowball, then I understand that while the decisions get harder of where to spend my time, the stakes or the rewards get bigger. And I want you to be thoughtful about how you're leveraging your own personal and professional brand in order to be able to trudge your path down with your company. Now, while I'm growing up in prison, I'm continuing to shift and grow as a person. And all this entire time, I'm developing, again, my own personal brand. And I need to try to figure out how people are going to connect with me when I come home from prison. And I had no idea how I was going to do it. I literally prayed for days where I would be able to have some level of success. And I didn't even know what that looked like. And the entire time, I didn't realize that, hey, Marcus, the hustler that you were, that wasn't a horrible brand that you were building. The question that you ask yourself is, how are you leveraging it as a superpower? And this is why one of the strategies I had to learn while I was centering my new brand of the new Marcus, the new CEO that I knew wanted to come home and be successful, I needed to channel some of my own personal resilience through a different perspective that will allow for me to be able to come home and succeed. So I had to go back and tell myself, like, yo, look, you can reinvent yourself. It doesn't matter how people see you. It don't matter that you got a felony conviction. It don't matter that you went to prison when you was a 15-year-old kid. People may see you as a dude who wore handcuffs, but you have the power to change your brand. In fact, Marcus, if you're being honest with yourself, every time you move into a different circle, you have an opportunity to experiment with changing the brand perception that you're building at any given time, right? Whether or not I'm moving from another, in my own personal experience, from another prison to another prison, when I was going, in fact, even when I was going to high school, when I was going from one school to another, the person who I was at school A, I could be a completely different person once I got to school B. I didn't have to bring whatever I was known for and at school A into school B. Whatever business that you're starting or launching or you're growing right now, it's not contingent upon what happened in the past. No one, even if you have a brand centered around what happened in the past or success or failures there, you can choose what you want to bring there. And you have to always ask yourself, like I had to, what is the brand that I'm building? If I were making a statement in the world, what would that brand statement be? If I was making a statement in the world back then, I would have to ask myself, what would the brand statement be? And one of the best ways to consciously or unconsciously build your brand is ensuring that while you're being thoughtful about the statement that you're building, is the people you connect to along the journey. Because the statement that you're building, it only begins to manifest once you're correctly aligned with others who also represent your brand. You can't be the CEO, Marcus, that's showing up going around the way, still hanging around the same folks, talking the same, doing the same things, going the same places. You can't do that, because what's going to happen is that old brand that you had will begin to infiltrate. And then not only are you going to be known for being this person in some circles and this person here, but there's no brand consistency and you aren't building equity there. And so while you're building your own brand, make sure that you're building also a relationship strategy. Who are you hanging around? Hang where your tribe hangs. Take pics with them. Build content around your actual brand statement. Open your front-facing camera when you out of these conferences and leverage tools like IG stories and Twitter to introduce and tag the people that you're hanging around and add value to your community. That's a real strategy that you can deploy to just help create alignment, build relationships. Now, not only are you continuing to create and craft your own personal or professional brand for you as a person and for your business, but to the community, they're connecting the brand of someone else back to you as well, and you giving back, right? You sharing the journey of someone else. So if you want to take a snapshot of me and post me on your IG stories and align me with your brand, I ain't gonna be mad at you. Just make sure you tag me. But the goal here is to make sure that you're building a space where the story that you continue to share about yourself with the world creates the perception that you want them to have of you. You're building a personal brand that's widely recognized and it's a largely uniform perception or impression by someone else. It's not just how you feel about your brand. What you bring to the world is what other people see and the perceptions that they're going to develop. And that's what we want to be thoughtful about. So I had to ask myself for real, like, all right, Marcus, if you're not telling me you want to fit, if you're not telling yourself you want to fit in your square peg inside of a round hole, how are you thinking about perception? And so I had to ask myself, what is perception? How do I define that? And this is the story this is why I tell myself, I'm like, perception is the story that I have to tell myself or tell others about me when they see me. I got to tell you what the perception is. And more importantly, what am I telling myself and what are you going to articulate about me when I'm not in the room? Something I told somebody yesterday, I said, hey, listen, you can't control if somebody brings you up inside of a conversation in a room that you're not in. But you can control how they bring you up if they bring you up in a conversation. One of the dopest things that I could ever tell you to happen in my career was figuring out how to position myself so that my personal and my professional brand showed up in rooms well before I did. Well before Elizabeth ever met me, you could know, like, this is the person that Marcus is going to be based off what I see in the world, who has talked about Marcus, all the things. And it's typically all going to be consistent stories that are being told because I'm very thoughtful and methodical about how I manage my own personal brand. So no matter if you're building a brand around fighting for civil rights, whether or not you're building a brand, you're trying to figure out how to do it by any means necessary. And don't let me get started on some of the same people who live in my own backyard who's killing it and making a brand for themselves and their own products, like my friend Angel Gregorio, who is the owner of the Spice Suite in a shopping mall strip called Black and Forth here in Washington, D.C. She's crushing it mostly because of the brand and the personal brand that she's building for herself. I mean, she legit travels around the world to buy spices, to come back here to DC and sells them for a bag. Let me tell you, her spices ain't cheap. And she got lines running out the door for her product, mostly because folks want to align with the mission of what Black and Forth and what the Spice Suite stands for. And she's very thoughtful about the personal brand that she's building. I have another friend, my friend Arian Long. She's the CEO of Family. She built a brand in a successful business after going through a cancer scare related to some chemicals and some popular pads that she was using and tampons, and it created something inside of her own health, created some health issues for her that allowed for her to align her own personal narrative about what she was going through in her health risk, her health scare, to creating Family, which is an incredible product that's beginning to permeate its way around the country. And it's all centered around the personal brand that she continues to be able to build. And so, yes, even if you're building a business or a person and you one of them folks that want to come up with a catchy jingle like these folks that go, ba-da-ba-ba-ba, you must remember that the most successful companies in the world still are very intentional about building their brands. It doesn't matter how small you are, how large you are, you have to understand that these leaders, these visionaries, these entrepreneurs have one singular thing in common, and that's that they're building brand equity. And so the question I'm asking you, the question I'm asking all of you all on the call is, how are you being thoughtful about not only managing who you are, connecting back to who you used to be, understanding how to pull the new you to who you want your brand to exemplify in the marketplace, but then what is the equity that you're building? Because the one thing I think that folks don't understand when they're building their brand are the steps that it's going to take in order to be able to get to the equity play. Like, we all want the thousands of followers on social. We want people to like line up around the corner to buy our products. We want all this amazing success for our businesses. And we think that it's going to happen by happenstance. We ain't even going to talk about how majority of the businesses fail simply because of the lack of awareness. It ain't because your product is horrible. It's mostly a lot of it is because of the lack of awareness. And a lot of the awareness is going to come, especially if you're a bootstrapper like I was, in building your brand. 3 things I want to be able to make sure that we're being thoughtful about when we're building our brand, because these are the steps that I'm thoughtful about when I'm thinking about my own personal brand. The first one is making sure that I'm very clearly identifying what my brand is. So Flikshop's brand, we want to be able to make sure that we keep families connected to their incarcerated loved ones. Marcus wants, hold up, and I should have paused there, right? There's the Flikshop brand, and then there's the Marcus Bullock brand. The Flikshop brand, I'm being thoughtful about building the technology that keeps families and communities connected to incarcerated people. The Marcus Bullock brand, again, I started the whole talk with, I want to be able to leverage the resilience and the relationships that I build in order to continue to further my career. Those are 2 different brands, and I have to be able to make sure that I identify them on the front side of it so I know who's showing up when and where. The second thing I'm thoughtful about is how I'm building my online presence. Now, this is a place where I probably don't have to spend a ton of time, but I want to be able to make sure that we at least have some conversation so that you can hear what you already know. The third thing that I'm going to talk about in building your brand is expanding your network and the power of relationships. Because I told you one thing that if you were on the last call, one of the things that I say all the time, I probably should get it on a t-shirt underneath Flikshop because I'm building a brand. One of the things I put on my shirt is you cannot outwork relationships. I don't care how hard you work, you cannot outwork relationships. So be thoughtful about that. All right. So now I want to get into, matter of fact, before I get into these 3 steps, I want to pause there because I've been giving, just shooting out a lot of information. I want to make sure I give room for anybody to jump in and have any questions or any stories around their own personal brand that they think that may align with some others in the group. Cool beans. Going once, going twice. I'm gonna turn all the way around, give it a few more extra seconds.
I mean, I can ask a question. I know it's tough to be presented without people asking questions too. But do you have?
I'm one of them dudes that like to have fun on camera. If you don't see, I'm gonna be hyped anyway. I'm over here sweating like an old Negro Baptist preacher over here. I'm gonna have fun either way. But I appreciate you jumping in. Let's go.
Well, I see it's hot in the sun there too. I bet it's like shining on you. Do you have any recommendations for like doing I don't know, like a self-assessment and actually determining like the elements of your personal brand? Is it simple reflection, or would you suggest actually like writing things down and making it a little more, I don't know, like formal?
I think so. I think that, it is important to understand all of, I think it's important to leverage the tools that we have available to us to be able to help identify some things that may build onto our brand, whether it be like I don't know, like a Myers-Briggs temperament sort of, for example, right? Being able to understand whether or not, you're an introvert versus extrovert or intuitive versus like all of those tools. I think that those are great. The Gallup post, I think that those are awesome to be able to do these kinds of personal assessments, especially if you're doing an assessment around what you think that the brand is for your company, and notice that language I use, what you think that the brand is for your company. And the reason why I use that language, because it always evolves, right? And I think there's some permanency that people attach to their businesses, especially as startups, thinking that like, it gotta be this one way and we can't pivot. But if you're being thoughtful about that, then I think that it really is around self-reflection. I think it's around building some self-awareness and some emotional intelligence about who you are, where you come from, leveraging the tools that's been given to you through your own cultural experiences and lived experience that is allowing you to find the alignment to be who you want to be.
Okay, thank you.
But I appreciate that question though. It's like we got Amber. Amber, what's good? Holla at me.
Like I said earlier, but Joe, just to add to your question, that is what D-Bias is doing. So what I'm focusing on is helping folks identify the gaps between what they think their company is doing and what they're really doing. Like not only their perspective, but their impact. And a lot of so I do my like how I sell my platform is I go to these workshops and I work with a lot of startup companies because early on right now, this is where you start building your brand, but also what your brand is actually doing. And a lot of
Yeah.
startups, so I just did one like last month in a accelerator startup, and one of the companies is some biking app, a technology. But the mobility industry, they are very neutral around their advocacy in regards to like car centered like municipalities or policies. And he had mentioned to me, not all of us can be advocates in what we're doing, and some of us have to work with like the people we're not aligned with. And my pushback was, well, the folks you're not aligned with are those in power. You're not taking power from them. You're not restructuring power. You're not sharing power. You're continuously losing, especially like in a city like Pittsburgh. So that brand, without me even knowing his company, because I work with so many folks in that space, I already anticipated how his company works, but explaining to him the issues that he's going to have partnering, or the issues the folks purchasing his products in that space are going to have having that. But yeah, Marcus, I agree. Like your brand is where the future is. Your brand equity is important, and a lot of words we use have meanings, and the gap between the actions of the words we use is, for folks like me, easy, but for other folks, they just see it in your product. So yeah.
No, thank you so much for that, Amber. I appreciate it. And I'm glad, spoken like a true entrepreneur, I'm glad that you jumped in and started talking about immediately about your product and what you're building on your side. I think that's important, recognizing those opportunities, and then connect again. That I love how you did a good job with connecting back to this conversation and your brand and why that's important to you. So thank you so much for that. All right, so now I want to jump in and I want to talk about how I leverage my brand in order to be able to build my own personal career. There are a few pieces of the toolkit that I leverage on a very daily basis in order to be able to build my own personal as career and professional as in my own professional career. Now, just so you know, there are two ways that Marcus makes money in my career. One, as a CEO of Flikshop, whether it's from Flikshop or all of the other tentacles that come from Flikshop School of Business, that's ways that we capture revenue, right? And Flikshop pays Marcus. Now, that's my professional brand. How I develop that as a CEO, my goal is to set the vision of the company, make sure I'm building the right pathway, and always keeping money in so that I can keep the trains going. Like that's my central role as a CEO. Now, in my personal life, as a personal part of the brand that I'm building, I'm a public speaker. Now, I do a lot of public speaking. I speak around the country. I'm in classrooms. I'm in colleges, universities, sometimes in churches and community centers or schools. Sometimes I'm in corporate offices. I'm talking to sales teams, marketing teams, and I'm being thoughtful about the content that I'm delivering, not only in those rooms where Marcus Bullock is showing up, but where Flikshop is showing up, where Marcus Jr., my son, is showing up at his basketball games, and who the dad I am is when I'm there, right? I don't know if it's somebody else in the bleachers that may be a potential client at that basketball game that may want to hire me as a speaker, and I don't want to be the dude wilding out on the sidelines, yelling and cussing at the kids, and mind you, my son plays AAU basketball. He's 12 years old. And yes, there are parents that are out there wilding in the bleachers. But I don't want to be that person, because I promise you, the very first thing I'm thinking when I'm looking down to my left or my right and I see one of these parents wilding out on the bleachers, in my head I'm thinking like, yo, I would never want to do business with this person. I would never want to work with this person. I would never want to be around them in my personal life because the energy that they're exuding in the small time frame that their children have with them says a lot about who their brand is. Now, they may be an incredible partner, collaborator, whatever, but simply because of what they exuded in that moment, it completely disqualified them from the opportunity to be able to do business with me, right? And what I don't want to do, what I don't want to be is that person in any environment that I'm ever in. So I'm very thoughtful about who I am. And it starts with one, making sure that I create that brand statement. If I have the statement and I tell myself every day and I remind myself of who I am and who I want to show up to be, I walk and talk in that space when I walk out of my front door. The second thing I do is I talk and I share the career stories. I think it's important in your professional career to tell the career stories, not just the glamorous ones. Storytelling is important. It's a place that allows you to be able to create empathy. And the third one is I'm being thoughtful about my professional goals and I'm doing a good job of outlining them along the way. Now, one of the things that, are important, and I talked about the brand statement and how I leverage my own, is identifying yours. So I wanted to just take a quick moment and I want you all to jot down your own personal brand statement, just to be able to make sure that I'm not taking a bunch of time. I even added an actual write-in prompt. You can write it on a sheet of paper beside you, on your phone. You can write it down on your tablet. You type it on your computer. You can put it in the chat if you want to. What I really want you to do is not for me, and it's not even just for exercise. What it really is for you to have a moment to give yourself the permission to tell us all who you are. Now think about this prompt and fill in those blanks. I am a blank that helps blank. All of us, especially us founders who are building businesses, are solving a problem, right? The businesses that we're creating are not revenue generating tools. They're problem solving tools that happen to either generate revenue or have impact, right? So be thoughtful about what the problem you're solving. And if you would communicate in one line, this ain't no 60-second elevator pitch about who your business is and all these things. I want you to clearly say, I am a blank that helps blank. I am a tech CEO that wants to help keep families connected to their incarcerated families. Or in my personal life, I'm a public speaker that helps communities empathize with folks coming out of marginalized areas. So I wanted all of us to take a quick second, and I want somebody to be the brave soul to jump out there and tell me what their brand statement is. So let's give it a good 30 to 40 seconds, 30, 40 more seconds. Most of you guys already know what your statement is. You just needed the prompt to be able to allow you to fill in the blanks. And I want to give you that space to be able to fill them in. So I'm gonna come back in 10 more seconds. And then I want someone to please jump out and tell me and read to me what their brand statement is. And then tell me why you chose that, or throw it in your chat and I'll read it for you. But I'm still gonna ask you why you chose that statement. 10 more seconds.
Don't be shy.
Hold on, I'm gonna turn around.
We're gonna call on you.
Pokey, and you turn yourself about.
Ray, Sosa, Stacy, Timothy.
I'm a blank that helps. It only helps you. I mean, I can read my brand statement and I can keep going, but for all of you overachievers who like to be this, leaders and want to lead other, this is me kind of trying to nudge you. The one to be the ones that take over the world, the ones that's like, I fear nothing, the ones like, I know my brand better than everyone else. Come off mute.
I think we can force people off mute too.
You think
My cry baby gonna be in the background telling us their brand statement.
I mean, I can get us started. I realize I'm not the entrepreneur here, but
Appreciate you, Joe. Let's go.
yeah. So I'm a person that helps entrepreneurs get venture capital funding. Say that because that's one of the objectives of our accelerator programs. But in my case, I'm proud to say that I've actually been able to deliver those results. So that is directly through investments that I've sourced, which entrepreneurs, that's Grace from Care Advisors, that's Nathan Feitzer for Clinify, that's Cesar Herrera from Yubo Health, But then also, I make recommendations for folks to get connected with other investors, which have resulted in investments. It's looking like it's going to be James Lott from Scripted. He's one of our alumni. It was Colby Takeda from, these are all healthcare. This is Colby Takeda from Pear Suite as well. I appreciate the fact checking.
No, this is good. So, Joe, this is good. So, for all of Joe, you and I getting ready to have a very intimate conversation. We may let a couple of people eavesdrop on it. All right,
go for it.
The question I have for you: how long have you been able to identify yourself inside of this own professional with this professional brand?
Yeah, not long. I would say truly in the past year, when I've actually been able to deliver results, but that's been an objective for 2 years though, really since I joined Village Capital. I think I'm actually coming up on my 2-year anniversary.
Yo, congratulations on that. Shout out to you for 2 years in.
Appreciate it.
Especially in an environment where no one stays anywhere for 2 years. So one of the follow-up questions I have, if you've been saying this for a while, did someone else give you the permit? Did someone else call you a connector or someone who invests in people, invests in entrepreneurs this way? Were you labeled this way, or was this something that you said, no, well before I even made the first connection or wrote the first check, this is who I am and what I'm going to be?
Yeah. I think in my personal life, I definitely am a connector. I do a good job of bringing folks, like-minded or not, together, and like joining together different friend groups. But in the professional world, specifically within venture capital, I think it's one of the things I do well. And it's a bit more self-labeled even in the professional world. I hope to be able to connect folks with customers in the future, but right now I build relationships with other venture capitalists and able to bring them together, at least connect them with different companies. So it's a little self-labeled, but it's also what I reflect on as far as like where I can actually tangibly help founders and not bullshit them.
The wonderful thing about this, and thank you so much for this, Joe. Thank you for jumping in there. The wonderful thing about being able to have a self-proclaimed label that you place on yourself, and again, taking your own agency to label yourself and make sure that you're able to articulate who you are through a statement like this, is that one, it triggers something in other people so that they remember who you are and what you're going to be to them in their lives, or who they can either help connect you to, or how to extract value from their relationship. That's one thing, but it also allows for you to walk in a space of confidence, knowing that this is who I am and this is what I'm doing. And what it's creating, what I think is interesting when you create these brand statements like this, and I want to give someone else the opportunity to be able to jump in and share these, it's creating what I like to call, through some of the research that I've done with some of the folks in academia, is cumulative advantage. Now, because what I really want you to remember, what I want you guys to remember, is that what you're creating is not what in the entrepreneurial world is called competitive advantage. Because I think when you talk about competitive advantage, you're being thoughtful about who someone else is and how you can run a race that may or may not align with your own personal professional growth. Cumulative advantage allows you to be able to build intentionality around the brand like Joe is doing, because he's made a statement here, the name, the colors around it, Village Capital shirts that he's probably wearing, his email signature, how he shows up in conversations, knowing that this is who he is because he said it over and over again, that this is who I am, what he listens to on the radio, his podcast, what's he's going on his playlist, the food he eats because of where he eats, because of the job that he does, because of who he hangs out with, because 10 minutes ago, I just told y'all about the importance of building relationships, and how I'm sure Joe is leveraging those relationships to continue to build his brand. And now, I don't care whatever you're building a brand around, over time, if you stick with it, you continue to self-label, you would have significantly created a snowballing advantage over your competitors, your history, in my own situation, and even your own failures. Cumulative advantage, which is also known as the Matthew effect in sociology, is defined as creating an initial advantage just by starting something. Your start will give you an advantage, but the inequality of your gains will grow as well, simply because you'll outpace what everyone else is either said about you, doing, or whatever the things are. You're creating a cumulative advantage. And so well before I walk in the door, because I was intentional about building a brand elsewhere in any environments, folks know who Marcus is simply about just who I built my brand to be. And if they don't, because I'm also intentional about where my online presence lies, if they Google me, they can see the things that align with my brand. They Google Flikshop, they can see the things that align with Flikshop's brand. In fact, Google's so smart, they can even tell you the things that are similar to Marcus and similar to his brand, only because I created something that they can define, that they can compare against. I'm creating cumulative advantage that's allowing, whether it be a news article that talked about Marcus, whether or not it's a Facebook, Instagram post, or Twitter, the family dinners I went to, this conversation right here, I'm providing a level of value, I hope, to a group of entrepreneurs that will see me now, not just simply as the CEO, Marcus, who's running Flikshop, maybe not even as the orator that goes inside of some of these companies and does a keynote talk, but now even I'm continuing to develop a new brand that you guys will only know me as someone who understands how to articulate the small nuances of launching a startup. This is something that I'm creating here, and it's going to create cumulative advantage that I'm super excited about. Now, the reason why statements are important, because statements force you to place words, they force you to place language on what you already know instinctively inside of your head. And so I want to make sure that if you don't do anything else after this call, please be able to make sure that you create a personal or a professional brand statement for yourself. And some folks may ask me, what should I say about my past when you're talking about their career that aligns with this either new company that they're launching or this new business that they're launching as they're creating this new brand, especially as they're creating career stories, which I think storytelling is important. Now, I don't have a ton of experience around that because, you know, I started a couple of companies and all I talk about is me going to prison and how I came from prison. I leverage what I've learned in my lived experience to be able to build what I've built now. But even in that story, there's something around that career story of me going to prison and helping create alignment for even some of our customers, like the mothers who also may have a son that's in jail or prison who may use our product. And that's when the power of storytelling comes to play. So make sure if you do, please don't be afraid to share your stories or your journey, specifically your career story, as you're thinking about building your brand. Make sure you also use tools like your notes app in your phone and create lists of checkbox goals. One of the things I make sure that I'm thoughtful about is the goals that I'm creating. And sometimes even in my company, we use platforms that allow us to create company goals. We break them up to what's called sprints. It's a whole nother talk show, but our sprints allow us to be able to set very calculated goals that allow us to be able to hit them. Now, we don't have a lot of time, but what one of the things I do not want to leave this conversation when we have a conversation about goals. Some of you have heard people talk about the difference between leading versus lagging goals. I won't spend a ton of time there, but if you don't real live, when you jump off this, Google leading versus lagging goals after this call and learn how you can create professional goals that are not just lagging goals, but leading goals. If you haven't heard of leading versus lagging goals, I'll give you the cheat code real fast. Here's the cheat code on how to create leading versus lagging goals. Here's a lagging goal. I want to lose weight. That's it. That's a goal. I want to lose 20 pounds. You think you put numbers on it, a metric on it, so that helps you? No. Because what happens is you tell yourself, I want to lose weight, I want to lose 20 pounds. And even you put a timeline, I want to lose 20 pounds in 2 weeks. I want to lose 20 pounds in 2 weeks. That's a lagging goal because you only know the success of that goal after that 2 week time frame when you get in a scale and you look down and you ain't lost but 1 pound. You 19 pounds short and you like, dag, now we're trying to do it again. And it's kind of hard to hit lagging goals unless you're extremely disciplined. So a cheat code is create leading goals. Now, same person want to lose 20 pounds. Instead of just saying, I want to lose 20 pounds, they don't say, hey, look, I'm going to exercise more, I'm going to eat better, do the things, I'm going to get on skill. No, what they say is, I'm going to create leading goals. I'm going to lead up to this weight loss. One of the ways I'm going to do that is I want to drink 3 bottles of water every day for the next 2 weeks. I'm going to walk 2 miles a day, every day for the next 2 weeks. I'm also going to plank for 3 minutes every day for the next 2 weeks. And what happens is you have these micro goals that will lead you to your goal versus having a lagging goal that you can only trail when you get there. If you set the leading goals, I promise you, after 2 weeks of drinking 3 bottles of water, walking 2 miles, and planking every morning, you're going to be a lot closer to your ultimate goal of losing pounds within 3 weeks. So that's the difference between leading and lagging. Make sure you're setting leading goals and not lagging goals. And when you're setting leading goals, don't have a long list of stuff, right? Don't have a list of 20, 30 things. You only need 3 leading goals, and it needs to be in the side of a category. It needs to be time frame, 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years, whatever thing is, but make sure you have set leading goals versus lagging goals. I won't spend a ton of time on social media because we're up against time and a lot of us have experience with social media, but Facebook and Instagram are the places that folks are building a brand. You know it. Don't be afraid of it. If you're afraid of building content because you're scared of whatever the thing is, go build content or bring somebody around you to know how to build content, and you need to be building content. It's the world we live in. You need to be thoughtful about managing your brand online because that's where most of us find you. On Twitter, Twitter's one of the places where you can have a voice, and it's the public town hall, and you can say apparently whatever you want on there, but be thoughtful about the brand that you're building when you're on Twitter, as well as on TikTok. I think the TikTok is really cool and a fun place to be able to continue to build a brand, but I think it's important to be able to make sure you're being thoughtful about the kind of content you're placing there. My favorite of all the social media channels is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is favorite by far out of all of my social media platforms, and it's the place that I can be thoughtful and intentional about what I want to bring to the community, so that I'm being thoughtful about adding value to them. Make sure that you have a great opportunity to run a diagnostic of your own personal content, and be sure that you update your privacy settings online if you haven't done it already, especially on all your social pages, because I think that's important to know who can see your content. Please make sure you can do it. I posted a link right there. You can do a quick Google privacy checkup at myaccount.google.com. And it pays back in dividends. So make sure you do that. I didn't get a chance to talk about growing your network and how important that is, but I would be remiss. I wouldn't be on brand if I didn't talk about the power of building your professional network and understanding that when they say no new friends, it's the dumbest thing that anyone can say. Don't listen to Drizzy Drake. That's my guy. I like him. He from the 6. I like going there, even though they don't like people coming there with felony convictions. It's a whole nother talk show. We'll talk about that on another episode of Village Capital and Marcus Bullock. But make sure that you don't discount the ability to go out and build real relationships. Make sure you're being thoughtful about volunteering. You ain't always got to get paid for everything. Volunteering allows you the opportunity to be able to build very good relationships, and you continue to build your network, which is extremely important. Do not leave this important skill up to chance. Build an intentional strategy around the network that you're building, that you want to create for yourself. Go forth and crush thou like I try to do every day. There are a ton of ways that people turn their brand into profits. I'm blessed to be one of those ones who is very intentional about creating a brand that I can take with Marcus Bullock and turn to profits, and building a company that has its brand at the center of what it is that we're building. In fact, when I first began my speaking career, I couldn't believe that I had expertise in anything. I couldn't believe people was hiring me to do stuff. But despite that, and running several successful companies, we've been able to turn our brand into profits. I hope that you got some of these cool takeaways that are on this page here, whether or not it's defining your personal brand, how you create your own brand statement, because I think it's really, really important, how you identify your own professional goals. And again, you cannot outwork relationships, y'all. So make sure you're being thoughtful about building those. Thank you guys so much for joining this conversation around building your own professional brand. I had a lot of fun.
Wow. That was amazing. Thank you so much, Marcus. Yeah, I'm just like, there's so much knowledge to the content. I actually just started putting in that.
Yeah. Now, I love these sessions around building your own personal or professional brand. And I can't wait for some of y'all to actually hit me up and tell me the stories of how you leverage your personal brand in your business, your relationship, or even at work to help advance your next set of goals. As always, if you don't remember anything else from this video, remember that you cannot outwork relationships. So go out and go build some today. I'll see y'all on the next one.